Hello everyone, welcome to the day 15 session on Selenium WebDriver training. Today we are going to talk about the concept of BDD, Maven, and finally we'll be talking about Jenkins. So we'll first start with BDD. BDD basically stands for Behavior Driven Development, and in the engineering task, it comes under the category of acceptance testing, which is generally conducted to determine if the requirements of a specifications are met or not. The idea of automated acceptance test basically originated from extreme programming, specifically in the practice of test-driven development. So instead of business stakeholder passing requirements to the development team, the developer and the stakeholder collaborate to write the automated test that expresses the outcome which the stakeholder wants. Now, behavior driven development, as I've told you in short, is known as BDD, and it combines general techniques and principles of TDD to provide software development and management teams with shared tools and a shared process to collaborate on software development. TDD practitioners work from outside in, starting with a failing customer acceptance test that describes the behavior of the system from the customer point of view. Now, Cucumber is a tool which is available to us for behavior driven development to write the acceptance test, and the Cucumber tool was primarily available in Ruby, and later support for other languages are built in. So whenever we create a project in Cucumber, it has got two phases. One phase is called as the business phase and the other is called as the technical phase. The business phase is where we have got our feature files followed by scenarios which can contain steps for execution. And then we have got the technology phase where we have got corresponding step definitions for our feature file, automation library, support code, etc. Now, the technology facing files could be written down in any programming language like Ruby, Java, Perl, Python. All these languages are supported by Cucumber. And secondly, so the step definition files could be written using any programming language, Java, Ruby, Perl, Python, etc. And the feature files don't change because of the underlying programming language. Now, a generic project layout for Cucumber is like this. For example, if it is created in Ruby, then at the project level you have got the features folder which can contain .feature files, followed by a step definition folder which can contain .rb or .java or .pl or .py files, then a support which could have some functional libraries, etc. Now, feature files are essential part of the Cucumber which are used to write automation steps or acceptance tests. It is basically a live document And Cucumber basically provides us with a platform and tools to be shared across different stakeholders. The feature files which are generated can be consumed by any of the member of the stakeholder team like developer, tester, client, customer, stakeholders, management, etc. And all the feature files which are created end with a dot feature extension. Now, every feature can contain multiple scenarios. So a scenario is related to a test case. A scenario is described with the scenario description followed by something called as given when then. So feature files are written using Gherkin as a language. So Gherkin is the DSL, domain specific language for the Cucumber tool. There are two purposes which Gherkin do: documentation and automated test. So the order of the keywords which should appear in the Gherkin file are: you have feature, background, given when then, and but star examples. Okay. So you have first the feature followed by the background. After that you can have scenario outline. Then you have the given when then and but star and the examples. So this is a example of a complete feature file. You have got a feature available which says adding two numbers. Then you have got feature description available. Then you have got a background available. So the calculator should be reset to 0. So what is available at the background will get executed always as many data sets are available. So in examples, if we have got 3 data sets available, the program will run thrice, and every time before the run of these 3 steps, the calculator will be reset to 0. What is the scenario outline? It says adding two numbers. So we say given the input, when the calculator is run, then the output should be output. So given the input is to be taken from here, the output should match. Okay. So in examples, we declare the data set. Now, let's understand what does given when then means. So given is the state in which the system is, or it is also called as precondition. Then in when we perform the actual steps. In then we validate the action. Okay. So we basically are trying to capture user behavior with the system and the system response. This is what we are trying to capture. Now, you will see that the test scenario written down in the Gherkin language as a feature file is significantly different than you would have writing down the test scenario as a traditional manual test case. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to show you a demo project where I've implemented Cucumber with Selenium in Java. So let's have a look at it. So you create the project. So the project name is Selenium with Cucumber. It has got this SRC folder. It has got a feature folder. Now in the SRC folder, we have got 3 packages created: Cucumber test, page object model, and step definition. And in the feature file, I've got feature file available, which has got the name login logout.feature. Now, for our program to be understood by Eclipse, we have to add some jar files to our project workspace. The jar files which are added here are, these are the jar files which are added to our project workspace, and also you need to install Cucumber from Eclipse Marketplace. So you go to Eclipse Marketplace and help. Here you search for Cucumber and it will lead you to the so here this plugin I already have it. So if you don't have it, you will get install in here. Add this plugin to your Eclipse environment. Okay. Once you do that, when you create these .feature files, they will be recognized by the Eclipse environment. So let's have a look at the feature file, which is displaying the login logout scenario implemented in the Gherkin language. So we have the feature to test the features of the shopping application. Given you are on the OS Commerce homepage, so we have added this line in background so that every scenario which is available in this feature file will first run what is available in the background. So scenario, this is something called as a tag. So every scenario can have some tag using which they are described, and we can use these tags for execution. So those scenarios will get executed whose tag we will pass. Then the scenario says when you are logged in using username and password, then you should see the log off link. When you click on the log off link and you click on the continue button, then you are back to the home page. So this is my scenario. Now when we do not have the corresponding feature file available and we try to execute the test, it will generate us some code which we can use in the step definition file. Let me show you that. So let's say here currently in my step definition I do not have anything available. Now using this testrunner.java, which basically is using the JUnit run with annotation, we execute the test. So we pass some Cucumber options. Feature, where the feature folder is located. So it will be executing all the feature files inside the feature folder. In which format you want the report to be available. Where is your step definition available? Glue that folder to this Cucumber option. And the tag to be used is login. Using this, I execute my test scenario. What will happen is that if when it will not find any step definitions implemented, it will suggest you some step definition formats to be used like this. So this is the best way to generate the skeleton of the step definition file. So here is your step definition. Now let me uncomment the program. So let's have a look at what lines of code have we added for each of these step definition. So given I am on the OS Commerce homepage, I hope you recognize these characters. These are your regular expression characters. So given I am on the home page, we have our base URL defined and we set our Gecko driver. Then we initialize our Firefox driver. We provide the base URL and we initialize the page object model, call it as login. From the login PUM. Now let's have a look at the login page object model. It is same as what we have seen. We have got some sub-functions like click my account, type email, type password, click sign in, and then we have got one final function where we are typing email, password and clicking sign in. Okay. So for the when I am logged in, I am simply calling login.clickmyaccount and login.login fun, arg1, arg2. Arg1 is this, arg2 is this. So the data which is given to us on the feature file will be passed to this particular function. Then I should see the log off link. So you are checking whether the log off link is displayed or not. Then you will be clicking on the log off link and clicking on the continue button, and we are going to close the browser. So when I come to this and now my step definitions have implemented with the code, I run this program, it will basically run the login logout scenario. So when you come to target, here you will find out the reason for the failure. You will find that it failed because we have passed a wrong username, password. So let us give a correct password and then try to run the program again. So as the test will fail, your scenario will fail and it will mention the step which got failed in the result file. Now executing the test again. So as we run the program, we saw that we will be getting the output in which scenarios have passed. Okay. So this is about the implementation of BDD with Cucumber. Let me know if you have any questions. Yes, I'll be sharing the code with you guys so that you can practice at your end. Okay. So just take a small 5-minute break, and after that I will start discussing about Maven. Okay. Okay, resuming the session, let's discuss Maven. So Maven is a tool which is basically a build automation tool, also a dependency management tool, as well as a documentation tool. The website of Maven is this. So what happens is that as we create multiple code for our automation of our application, it we have to finally execute them by creating a test automation suite. And to perform that stuff, we can use Maven, which helps us with build creation. Okay, and also when we have Maven available, we do not have to bother about the dependency as we are transferring the project from one system to another, because Maven takes care of the dependency. Otherwise, our build will become extremely heavy by using all these jars. So we can use Maven to take care of the build management, to take care of the dependencies, and to help us execute and bundle our project to form a build. Now we need to integrate Maven with Eclipse. So before we move on to knowing how we can integrate Maven to Eclipse, there is an important file which is associated with the Maven project. It is known as Project Object Model, or POM. Don't confuse it with Page Object Model. POM in context to Maven is a project object model, which is the fundamental unit of work in Maven. It is basically an XML file which carries information about the project and the configuration details as well as the dependency details. So you can have a look at this link to understand the different XML nodes within the page object model and where and what you should store in them. So this is an example of a page object model. So when we create a Maven project, this particular .xml file get associated with it. Now, to install Maven, we need to go to help, install new software, and type in this URL in there. So go to help, install new software, and type out this URL. When you type out this URL, it will show you the Maven plugin which is available for installation. Select it, click on next for the installation to be cleared. So you have to accept the agreement. Once the installation is done, we will be creating a Maven project. So let me show you how do we create a Maven project. So you need to ensure that the installation is done, and it will after installation tell you to restart the Eclipse. Say yes. So once the installation is over and Eclipse is restarted, your Maven plugin would have been integrated with the Eclipse. So go to File, say New, Other. In project creation, select Maven. You will now see Maven as an option and say Maven project. As you create a Maven project, it will say allow you to click on next, and this table will be populated with some archetypes available like this. In here, you have to select the archetype which says quick start. Okay. So these archetypes will be available. So it takes a little while for them to be populated. So once these archetypes are available, you select quick start. When you do that, it will then move on to the next screen and ask you to provide a group ID and project ID. With that, the project gets created. So once the project is created, this would be the structure which will be formed. You will have an SRC main Java which will contain the group ID followed by the project ID, SRC test, again it will contain a package. Then you will have you will basically also have the pom.xml. Now, by default, these two packages will contain apptest.java and app.java. Delete those files, okay? And copy a login logout scenario file here. Remember to mention test within it, okay? So you have to name the file name followed with test. Only then Maven will recognize it and execute it. And all the files which we are going to use for testing will be put in this folder src test java. Okay. So this is a file which basically performs the login logout using the testng as a framework. So you need to copy this file to your src test java. When you do that, you will get some error. The error will be there because your Maven project doesn't have the dependencies of Selenium file or JRE which are required. So we need to search for those dependencies and add them to the pom.xml. For that, what do? You go to MVN repository and search in here for, let's say the first search we do is for Selenium Java. So just simply go and type Selenium Java in here and you will find this link. Click here. You will have this versions available. Click here and it will tell you that this is the Maven dependency node available which you can copy and add to your page object model. So that's what we would have done. We went to our page object model. So this is the group ID, this is the artifact ID. Here is the dependency available for Selenium. Similarly, you search and add the dependency for testng. So these dependencies are added, and further if you have used any jar file which should be added to the project workspace, search for those dependencies and add them. So once your page object model will be having all those dependencies, ideally these errors should go away after you have done the first build. So to do the first build, what you would be doing is right click on the project and say run as a Maven test. So when you run the program as a Maven test, the scenario for login and logout will start executing, but this time it will execute using the Maven plugin. So you can see it executing. So the same scenario of login logout you have so far seen in different formats or execution, right? You have seen it in execution in IDE. You have seen it in execution as a WebDriver script. You have seen it in execution using page object model, using the hybrid and keyword driven framework, using the BDD framework, and now you have seen using Maven you can run the same scenario. Now it shows you the test run were 1, there were no failures. So the results are available and Surefire reports, which talks to you the results as the testng output, as you can see in here, and see the output available. Okay. So this is the output available as a Surefire report. So this is how you run your project in Maven. So you can add all your test files inside this srt test.java and src test slash java and ensure all the files have got the test extension. And you need not add these dependencies or these jar files. You will see that, do you see that there is no separate reference libraries available, because all the dependencies have been added to this Maven managed dependencies. Do you see this Selenium jar? So when it executed or when it was building the project, at that time it fetched all the dependencies and added to the Maven managed dependencies. We are now going to have a look at how we can integrate this entire thing with Jenkins. So what is Jenkins? Jenkins is a software which allows continuous integration. And what is continuous integration? Continuous integration is a development practice which requires developers to integrate code into a shared repository several times a day. And then every check-in is verified by a automated build creation process which enables the team to detect issues with their code work early in the life cycle. So earlier, the build creation process used to happen after a significant amount of time has passed, let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. So the persons were writing the code on a daily basis. But until unless the build is created, we will not understand the impact of that code on the build, whether it caused the build to break or to pass or some feature to fail. So by the time you will be getting the bug, the developer may have forgotten what he has coded, and it becomes significantly difficult to identify the bug and write the program. So to overcome that obstacle, we automated the process of build creation so that the minute the developer has checked in the code, the build will be created and the developer will come to know whether the code they have written has caused the build to fail or not. Now Jenkins is installed on the server where central build making will take place. So the steps or the workflow of Jenkins is developers check their source code, check in their source code, it should be the word. Jenkins will be picking up the change source code and trigger the build making process and run any test if required. The build output, as in whether the build has passed or failed, is available on the dashboard. Now, to set up Jenkins on the system, you have to first go to this Jenkins website on the web page and download the .war file. So once Jenkins is open, go ahead and click on this download to download the Jenkins.war file. So this file is available for me here. So this is the file which gets downloaded. Okay. Then you will be following some steps to set up this Jenkins on your system, and the step is simple. Go to the drive on the command prompt where you have got Jenkins available and simply type java-jar jenkins.war. When it has installed successfully, you will be able to open this URL. So all you have to do is download jenkins.war and then go on command prompt to the prompt where you have got your Jenkins available and type in command java-jar jenkins.war. This will install Jenkins on your system. So let me start the Jenkins server and have a look at how I can integrate it with, or how I create a Maven project and run it. So this will launch the Jenkins. Now meanwhile this start, I can go ahead and open the localhost port 8080. So it's just saying please wait while Jenkins is ready to work, and the browser will refresh when it is ready. So let's just wait for a while. So when the Jenkins will start, it will ask you to provide a username and a password. This you would set when you are setting Jenkins on your system and you log in. Once you have logged in, it will show you the builds which are already available. And let's say if I want to create a new build, how will I do it? So go to new item and say that you want to create a freestyle provide a name of the item. Say you want to create a freestyle project, press OK. Just a minute, guys, I'll be back. 1 minute, please. So when you are creating a project, now you have to fetch the source code management. You will have to understand that by default, the source code management will not show you file system. So I will tell you from where you can add it. You give file system, you provide the path to your project, and you simply then go ahead and say save. When you say save, the path to this project in here is actually the path of your Maven project. So for example, the Maven project for me is available here. So when I do this, my project will be created. Now I need to ensure that file system is available. So what do? I go to manage Jenkins, and in here I am going to go to manage plugins. In this, it takes a little time to show you all the available Jenkins plugin. Once you see the list of all the available Jenkins plugin, there you will see the option of file system. So adding the projects from the file system, select that and say it to be added to your Jenkins. Once you have done that, go back to manage Jenkins and go to global tool configuration. When you will try to run your build for the Maven project, it will fail because we will have not associated Maven and the JDK which is required for execution. So go to global tools configuration and allow Java JDK and the Maven to be associated with this particular instance of Jenkins. So you go to JDK and you say that you want to install the JDK from here. Okay. Then you go to Maven and you say you want the Maven to be installed from Apache and choose a version. Okay. So for me, I have already installed Apache and JDK as my project got built. But in case for you, when it was not built, you will have to add these installers. Okay. Once you have added these installers, you go back to the project and you can click on build now. So it will start creating the build file for your project, and once executed, you will fetch the console output result which tells you that the scenario is pass. Okay. So this much amount of time was taken for the build to be created, and it is a successful build creation. That is how you can integrate Maven with Jenkins, and you can integrate a project created in Maven to your Jenkins environment. So in this manner you can quickly, as different people are working on your automation suite, you can go ahead and create the build to find out if because of any change or something else the build got failed or is it passing well. So you can tap on these information quickly. So what we have learned today, we have learned about how we can use BDD with Selenium, what is Maven, why Maven is useful, and how we can implement the dependencies in Maven so that it is able to recognize the files which have been created using Selenium and TestNG. And then we saw what is Jenkins. We installed Jenkins on our system and we saw how we can integrate a Maven project with the Jenkins. So that's all we have for today. Tomorrow will be our last class. So where we will be talking in general about the best programming practices, the kind of interview questions you can expect, and we will be talking about resume preparations, etc. So I will see you guys tomorrow then. Thank you so much for your time today. Take care. Have a good evening. Bye everyone.